Okay, hey guys, this is Dr. Sean for the anatomy classes. This is the 106.07014 and .21. So this is for week 4. We're going to do kind of the review here. I'm having some problems with the Zoom stuff, so I'm going to send you this on a link to the YouTube stuff, which is why I'm telling you. I don't know why, because you can't get it, and if you can't get it, then why would I tell you? Anyway, this is week 4, and we've already finished the midterm, and you guys have done really good. I'm going through and getting some other stuff tightened up and everything. So a couple real quick hints on what we've been working on is when you turn something in that's on paper, make sure it's in a PDF form. I'm going to have to look up on how to do that because some of you have Google Docs, I think Google Documents, and it doesn't come across. It comes across as pages. I can't open those. The other thing too is when people take photographs, they're taking photographs of things like their keyboard with a piece of paper, and so it looks kind of like, I'll show you in a second here what it looks like. When I receive a picture, okay, this is what I get. You can't even see anything. So I get nothing. I can't blow it up and it's blurry and not my stuff isn't good enough. So let's do them in PDF form or doc form or docx form. That's Windows 10, I think it is. And do that. But this week we're going to go over some things like blood, cardiovascular, functions and anatomy of the heart, blood vessels, and the lymph system and the immune system. So there's a lot going on this week. So first points about blood. Blood has two parts. It has the plasma and it has the what's called hematocrit, which is the solid bits. Now you'll see a what's it called, a whatever, a vial of blood. Okay, one, it has some stuff inside that vial. If you've ever seen that done, if you had blood taken, it has some stuff in there, and that keeps it from clotting. Okay, there's a lot of clotting factors. Blood left alone will clot. And when they pull blood, it's going to look red. Dark red, bright red, depending on how much oxygen is in there and how much hemoglobin there is. So a couple things of that that vial is we have, of course, I was going to draw it for you. I should do this on a different video. So I'm probably going to do that also. So I'm going to do a supplemental video for this, explaining blood, explaining anatomy of the heart, function of the heart, anatomy of the blood vessels, and functions and blah, 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 lymphatic. But let me talk about it real quick for you so you can get an idea of what's going on. Two parts. There's the solid bits, and then there's the plasma, which is the liquid part of blood. Now, blood, remember, is a connective tissue. Remember the 4 types of tissues we had? We had the neurological tissue, the muscle tissue, the connective tissue, and the epithelial tissue. This is a connective tissue because it connects all the things. The matrix, which is the stuff that it all floats around in, is called the plasma. Okay, plasma is a straw color, they say. It's kind of a yellowish kind of color, mostly water, about 91% water, but there's a lot of albumins and globulins and other little things that are proteins and minerals and salts and things like that that are diffused in that. Now, the other thing that's also diffused in there as we breathe is carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide, when it hits plasma, it turns into carbonic acid, and this is something we'll have to learn later when we talk about some of the physiology of why we breathe. One of the reasons we breathe is because the plasma that has absorbed that CO2 is now turning into carbonic acid. That tells parts of the brain and the heart that, hey, there's too acidic here and we need to off-gas that or get rid of it in some way. Other ways we can get rid of it is to urinate or to breathe harder, basically. Okay, so blood has a different things. It has the RBCs, which is the red blood cells. And then it has, they're called erythrocytes. Okay, so erythrocytes, hematocytes is what blood cells technically would be called if we're talking about, like, let's say terminology class, but hematopoiesis is the development of blood in the bone marrow. So remember, in the bone marrow, you guys remember, as we look back into the bones, remember we have the epiphyses, the diaphyses in the middle, epiphyses in the end, and we have, what is it called? This is spongy marrow, right? Spongy marrow in here, and the, spongy bone with the red marrow, sorry. And in here is the compact bone, and inside this is that tube, which we know as the medulla, and inside there you have fat tissue. So in here with that red bone marrow, we're going to make red blood cells, and white blood cells too, and platelets and all that other jazz. However, what happens is the body determines, like say you just moved up here into the mountains and you came from like sea level. Well, your blood's different. You don't have as many red blood cells as someone who's higher up does because they've adapted to the less oxygen, and they're able to build those up and end up with about a whole unit of extra blood, basically, and just more blood cells, more red blood cells on average. Now, it takes a few weeks for that to happen, but one of the things we would see is because of the lack of oxygen, your body's going to stimulate the adrenals, because there's too much acidity and all this kind of stuff, to release a thing called erythropoietin. Erythropoietin is going to get down to the bone marrow, tell the bone marrow to say, hey, kick up production and let's build some red blood cells. White blood cells, the other side of the coin on that one, that's your immune factors, okay? There's a bunch of different ones. There's eosinophils, basophils, neutrophils, monocytes, and leukocytes, okay? So we get those guys, they'll get to work, and we'll go over a little bit about how those work, but you can find that in your chapter really easily. Second part here, we're talking about the anatomy of the heart. The heart is 4 chambers. Count them, 1, 2, 3, 4. There's 2 kind of on the bottom, or you can split it up right and left. Okay, there's a left side of the heart that pumps to the body. It goes out through a place called the aorta, and it goes up and down. And up is to the head, and down is to the body, right? So that's the left side ventricle. And then it goes all the way through the whole system. It travels through, let's say, I'm going to follow it for you all the way through to let's say the hand. So we're going to go through we're going to go actually all the way down to the foot. It's easier. So we're going to go from the left ventricle. This is oxygenated blood. It's already been to the lungs, and it picked up oxygen. It's brought from the right side of the heart, brings back to the left side of the heart. Left side of the heart receives it in what's called the atrium. Atrium squeezes, pushes it into the ventricle. The ventricle squeezes and pushes it out the aorta. It goes around the arch of the aorta and down the thoracic aorta and splits off at a place called basically right under your belly button. Okay, those are the common iliac arteries, and it goes down through, becomes the internal and external iliac arteries, and then it becomes the femoral artery, and then it becomes the tibial artery, and then the popliteal artery, and then tibial, and then say the dorsal pedal artery or something like that. Then it switches around, drops off its oxygen, picks up some CO2 on the way. This is the little blood cells, right? And then it travels all the way back the same direction. It goes going back, of course, to the heart through what are called veins. So from the heart, it goes aorta, which is an archway, and it goes all the way down the aorta and then splits off into arteries. Those arteries get smaller and smaller until they become arterioles, and then arterioles become capillaries, and that's where exchange takes place. That's where you're dropping off oxygen, picking up CO2. Now back through the capillaries into venules, and then veins, and then like the vena cava. It's going to come back to the right side of the heart. It's going to come back to the right atrium. Right atrium is going to fill up. It's going to push stuff into the right ventricle. The right ventricle is going to shoot it over to the lung. It's going to drop off CO2. You're going to breathe out. It's going to pick up oxygen that you've breathed in, and it's going to start the whole system over again and go somewhere else. It's a quick and dirty process of learning where all these things go. It'd be really cool if you could just go through and write those all the way down. This is the way you really learn that. If you think you're going to do anything with cardiovascular, go from the heart, write the aorta, down the descending aorta, etc., all this stuff, to whatever organs. Pick one, do upper body, lower body, big toe, and thumb, okay? And then do one for the head, maybe for the brain, because it's going to have to cover the common carotid. It's going to bifurcate into the internal and external carotid, and then you're going to end up with the circle of Willis and all kinds of other jazz all the way up to your temporalis and temporal arteries and veins and stuff like that. So the heart is a pump. It's told how to pump. It has its own timing system. And you've seen the pictures of, like, I can't remember who it was, the Aztecs or the Mayans or whoever they were. They would pull a heart out and they'd hold it up and it'd still be beating. We know this from television, but we don't know it from real life because that was like 500 years ago. They would take out the heart of a person and it would still beat after they'd taken it out. And this is because it has its own pacemaker. Okay, it's called the SA node, and then there you have what's called the AV node, and then the bundle of HIS, HIS, and then it goes through Purkinje fibers and tells it how to beat about 40 beats a minute, just on its own. Now your brain and the nervous system, the parasympathetic and sympathetic systems, tell it to either increase or decrease depending on the activities, like what you're thinking, what you're feeling, what you've eaten. All of these kind of things can change your blood pressure, and also the amount of oxygen you need. These are some things that you will change your blood pressure and your heart rate. Blood pressure, remember, is the amount of push we're doing. That's the first part, is this systolic. If you've ever seen a blood pressure cuff, if you've ever used one, we have two numbers. One, like say 120 over 80. 120 is the top number. That's systolic. That's the push. And then as it comes back, that's the catch, basically. That's the diastolic. Okay. Now the pulse rate between what's 60 and 80, I guess, normal sitting down kind of stuff, probably maybe slower for some of you. Females, it tends to be lower anyway. Just, I don't know why, you just are more efficient on that kind of stuff. Males, it tends to be higher. The more salt you eat, it tends to be higher. The more pressure you have, it tends to be higher. And the tighter the arteries are, and this is called atherosclerosis, and high blood pressure and more pressure of that kind of thing. That'll increase also the heart rate. Heart rate will also increase from emotion and from stimulants like caffeine, sugar, nicotine, those kind of things. We'll go through those. You'll see that kind of happening in the case studies probably. You're going to talk about things like angina pectoris, myocardial infarction. So myo means muscle, cardio is heart, and infarction means basically it dies. Okay, and then angina means chest pain. It's kind of a non-specific diagnosis, but a really good one. Okay, you can also have panic attacks or anxiety attacks, can give you the same kind of feeling and some of the same symptoms. Other things too is either benign or benign paroxysmal. You have so many different things. You can have blood pressure changes due to pregnancy, like eclampsia and preeclampsia, and all kinds of different fun stuff in there. So anyway, there you go. Blood vessels. Blood vessels come in basically two things. Veins always go towards the heart, and arteries always go away. Don't worry about the whole blue blood and red blood thing. That's for diagram only. And one of the things is the red blood is oxygenated. It's picked up oxygen from the heart or from the liver. Scratch that. It comes from the lung where you have blood exchange to the alveoli, and then you bounce back to the heart. Coming back, even though it's oxygenated, it's coming back the pulmonary veins. Okay, it's leaving the pulmonary arteries, it's coming back to pulmonary veins. It's deoxygenated and oxygenated, opposite of what you usually see. Any vessels that are leaving the heart are arteries. Any that are coming back are veins. Okay, that kind of splits it up. Veins have generally three layers. There's going to be a tunica externa, or it's going to say something like that. There's going to be a muscular area, and then there's going to be the endothelial level. Okay. Those are kind of different terms that kind of got mashed up over time, because you would expect them to be endothelial, mesothelial, and endothelial, or something like that, or exothelial, whatever, but we don't see it that way, so pay attention to those. That's a little bit beyond this, but anyway. Functions of blood vessels is to transport, right? Transport what? Plasma, blood, red blood cells, oxygen, iron, minerals, nutrients, and wastes. That's everything that it transfers. Now it can transfer other gases that have been dissolved in the plasma, and that would be like your nitrogens and your carbon dioxide. However, nitrogen is pretty neutral. It doesn't really do anything, but it can cause problems if you're a diver. So there we go from there. Now, third part, let's get into this just a skosh little bit and give you guys some ideas of what's going on. I'm going to go through the other parts too for you. So I want to talk about the lymph system. The lymph system is a one-directional system. It always comes back, okay, and it's going to lead back up into here. These subclavian veins it attaches into. Okay, so here we got. I'm just going to look at interactive lectures, blood composition, blood types. Blood types. Your universal donor is going to be the O guys, right? The universal receiver is ABs. A's and B's, you know, they can give to their own fellas, and they can give to the universal receiver, which is AB, but they can't give to anybody else. So what are you guys, if you know what your blood type is? Now, later on, it'll get into also what's called the RH factor, and that's a whole other Megillah, and that gives you some different things like erythroblastosis fetalis, as if your kid is born or is being developed and it has RH positive blood and mom has RH negative blood. That can be an issue. You have to take some kind of medicines and stuff. Let's see, heart and heart disease. Okay, blood flow through heart, constriction, conduction system. That's electrical. That's going to be SA node and that jazz. I'm going through this real quick with you. Where are we at? Discussion. Okay, let's see a discussion on diet. Low carbohydrate diets have been very popular. Many people are going through variations of the high protein, low carb diet. Think of Atkins diet. There's also like the what's that primordial one going on? The caveman diet. I can't remember what it's called. But anyway, it's a really like high meat, you know, and all this kind of stuff, which they didn't really eat because they didn't. It's hard to get. Try to catch a rabbit, man. It's hard, and there's not many of them. So you're better off eating like roots and junk. What happens when the body only proteins and fats are ingested, but carbohydrates are excluded? The diets are high in proteins. Weight loss alternatives, why or why not? You can look those up. That's pretty easy. You're going to look also at a thing called ketosis and ketoacidosis. Those would be things to look up for that. That way you can kind of get an idea. The Atkins diet has an induction diet, I think a 10-day startup diet, which is actually really high protein, no carbs whatsoever. Week 4, let's see, we're going through here more. Come on, I'm going to try to get Zoom going, remember? Okay, so this is online case study. Download the worksheet. Let me see if I can do that. Oh, it has a glossary too. Man, these things. Let's open that up. Open when done, always. Provide a well-reasoned and complete response to the questions posted in the case study. Provide a well-reasoned and complete response to the questions posted in the study for immunity. Okay, apply proper spelling, grammar, mechanics. Good luck on that one, guys. A lot of you are you're not texting, man. Okay, here we go. What's this? The quiz? Let's look at the quiz. I'm going to look at the quiz. So each case study should be 3 to 5 well-developed sentences. A sentence, remember, has a period at the end, and it has like a capital at the beginning, and it has like a noun and a verb, and maybe some proverbs, maybe some adverbs and stuff like that to describe what's going on. You know, the heart is an organ, period. Okay, the heart is an organ that pumps blood, period. Those are good sentences, right? Number 1, see, this is heart stuff. Heart stuff, Angela's physician suspects that Angela has just suffered a myocardial infarction or heart attack. She tells Angela that she is going to take blood samples so the hospital lab can perform a test. Okay, so the tests with those, that's really interesting. They've changed in the past few years. We used to do like creatine, phosphate, and stuff like that. There's some differences in them now. They're looking for other inflammatory processes. They're inflammatory markers that are in the blood. They're also looking from some like alkaline phosphatase and some weird stuff like that that you'd usually see in like bone issues. But we see those like it'll help us determine how much calcium is being used and stuff like that. So look those up, and like blood tests for myocardial infarction, MI, right? It's a heart attack. And that'll give you a better idea of what's going on, and then you can submit a good answer. Case 2 for this week is many years ago there was a famous case of a boy born with severe combined immune deficiency. You know, I have this. He was called The Boy in the Bubble, and if you've ever watched, it was a movie with John Travolta of all people in it, and I'm trying to go through and find my notes that I had for you guys. It was funny because John Travolta was in this movie, and he was the boy in the bubble. And at the end, he kind of freaks out, and he's like, "I'm not gonna live in a bubble anymore." And he goes outside and feels a tree, and that's like the end of the movie. You never find out what happens. But look that stuff up. He has with severe combined immune deficiency. It's very similar to acquired immune deficiency syndrome, or AIDS. Now, acquired means you got it from somewhere. His is he was born with it. Okay, so he didn't have AIDS. This was before the AIDS thing happened, and we were just understanding what was going on. But we knew he had no good immune system, so he would have died if he'd gone outside and got a cold. So here we go. Let's see. His physicians placed him in a pathogen-free chamber that resembled a giant glass bubble. What purpose was served by doing this? What treatments are available today that might have helped this boy? So you would look up things like immune boosters, like medical immune boosters, whether it's a transfusion or something like that. Look those up, you'll find that stuff, okay? Let's go over the quiz for week 4 real quick. I'm going to go 15 to 21 is the chapters, man, and we're like looking at how far are we going here? Let's see. We're at 19 minutes. This is okay. As long as you guys can watch the whole thing, I'm giving you a bunch of information. Which of the following is true of iron? Okay. It binds reversibly to oxygen. Yes, it is the heme part of hemoglobin. Yes, that's true too. There's some good stuff in there. Now remember, iron is responsible for helping you carry the oxygen in the hemoglobin. Okay, it's part of the hemoglobin part. Pacemaker of the heart is located in the upper wall of the which? And we're going to go through that one. The pacemaker is the SA node. Okay, it's a sinoatrial node, which will give you the hint on that one. The sinoatrial node is also, it should give you the side of that one, so you can look that one up. Ejection fraction of 30% is, you're going to have to look up the amount of oxygen and hemoglobin in the blood that leaves which part of the heart, and you'll be able to find the ejection fraction. Okay, make sure and look those kind of things up. I hate having to do this twice. What is the main vein that drains the brain? That's funny. Here's a joke that'll tell you. Okay, if a gang of clowns attacks you, which one should you go after first? That, of course, would be the juggler. That's a dad joke. Number 5 here, which of the following is most likely to develop is if the pressure of the pulmonary capillaries increases. Pulmonary, remember that's lungs. Capillaries are the tiny little ones. Are we going to get what's called pedal edema, varicose veins, pulsating jugular veins, or pulmonary edema? Pulmonary edema will be swelling in the lungs itself. Okay, that can happen from like smoke inhalation or maybe some other injuries like COPD or maybe emphysema, probably not emphysema, but maybe pneumonia. Okay, pulsating jugular veins, you're usually going to see that. That's the jugular veins that are through here. You're usually going to see that with liver issues. Varicose veins, you'll see that all over, especially in the lower extremity, especially for people who stand a lot. So all you people who are becoming nurses and whatnot, you're going to be, have to get some compression socks. You'll be standing all the freaking time. But you need your vitamin C for that, because what it is in those is in the veins are valves that can like open and close and help blood only go back to the heart, but they can like bend and open up, and that's where you get varicose veins. And then pedal edema means the feet. It's called dependent edema, or from right-sided heart failure, which you will also see. Number 6, which statement is not true about baroreceptors? Baro means what? Baro means pressure, and receptors means receivers. So it's a neurological part of your body that receives information about the pressure. Okay, located in the carotid sinus, aortic arch. Carotid sinus is up here. So remember back in the day, well, you guys might not remember, I don't know, this happens about every 8 years. The kids used to do this trick where they would like push on their neck, right, and you'd pant, and then they'd bend over and stand up and they'd pass out. And that's you're pressing on these carotid sinuses, and you're telling it that there's too much pressure going to the head. And when you let go, it goes, whoop, opens up, and there's not enough heart pressure because the heart was slowed down, and your brain goes into control, delete, reset, and you pass out. It's always fun and games for little kids until one kid always dies. It happens about every 8 years for some reason. Then people are terrified of touching themselves or each other. Oh, hypoxemia means low what? Oxygen, right? Can induce reflex tachycardia. Tachy means fast, okay? Cardia means heart, so fast heart. So fast heartbeat, that's your increased heart rate. Bradycardia is a slow heartbeat, okay? Activated by a hemorrhage-induced decline in blood pressure. That's a good answer. Those are good, so you get to look those up, Go find that stuff. Let's see, is that it? Oh no, 7? There's more questions. An overactive spleen may prematurely remove platelets in circulation, thereby predisposing a person to whatever. So the spleen, which is in the upper left quadrant, okay, it receives blood and then it goes through a process just like TSA when you go to the airport and asks everybody, hey, how you doing? How long you been around? Blah, 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 blah. And if you've been around too long, they're going to recycle you if you're a red blood cell, okay? That's what they do. There's also an immune function in there, so it's like basically kind of going to a military base where everybody's going to check everybody out, okay? They check, they recycle the red blood cells if there's any bacteriums or whatever in there, viruses, you'll have a response through the immune system. Then it's sent to the liver, and the liver does some more of that and recycles all of the blood and becomes like bilirubin and biliverdin and all that jazz. You get the heme out of it and recycles iron and everything. Okay, which of the following is true about lymph? Is it secreted by the subclavian veins in a large lymphatic ducts? It goes to those, okay? So look at that. You'll be able to look at the direction that it goes from the body to those areas, and then goes through the cycling process of going through your heart and then into your liver so it can be cleaned, basically. Okay, what is the massive What is the effect of a massive release of histamine? Oh, okay. Histamines, remember, look at antihistamines. What do antihistamines do? That's what you want to look at, the opposite of what histamines do. Your body releases histamines too. I'll talk about that at another time. Let's see what else. Number 10, I think this is the last one. Yeah. This is the group of proteins secreted by viral infected cells. The proteins prevent viral replication. Okay, so you're gonna, so if we read this question, this is a group of proteins, hint, hint, okay, secreted by viral infected cells, okay, that's the important part, virally infected cells. These proteins prevent viral replication. Now, if we look at these different words, you're going to have to look them up, okay? I don't want to give you the hint on this one, but pyrogens are ones that make you have a fever, so that's just a hint for there. Let me see if I got all this stuff done here correctly, because that's the other thing, and I have some glasses because I can't read my little tiny writing with all this stuff. Don't forget to look up, okay, problems with the diet stuff. Oh, you're going to have maybe kidney stones, pancreas, gallbladder, thyroid problems. Changes in heart muscle. Oh, okay. Make sure to look up creatinine, troponin, those kind of things. CKMB, which is creatine kinase. That's good. Okay. There we go. I think that's probably... Oh, let's submit the quiz. We got a 0. Okay, whatever. I don't care. I didn't do any of the answers, so... I entered hidden. Okay, so you can go back. I think you got a couple choices on that one to take it at least once or twice, most of you. So you should be able to do that. And just take your notes. You know, do your notes ahead of time. You guys should be good. This is week 5. Okay, so that's it. So guys, that's it. I'm going to go ahead and produce this video. We're going to set it out, and I'm going to email you the link. Okay, there's some other links in there too that I have for other stuff on my YouTube channel. Remember the Natural BodyWorks on YouTube, and you look that up, and you should be able to find my Anatomy and Physiology. I'm going to see if I have anything that relates to this. Not really these ones. It was more neuroanatomy and muscle stuff and skeletal and female and male anatomy, urinary system. Okay, so anyway, this is Dr. Sean. I'm going to get a hold of you guys for the Zoom later, so wish me luck on that. You guys are doing great. Keep going. It's almost over.